Question now is at clause 4 stand part.
Mr. Chair.
Pini Henare.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair. Thank
Tēnā
you very
koe.
much once again for this opportunity. Sir, to clause 4, there are some relatively, I guess, minor changes to the definitions of, it says here in section 2, repeal the definitions of Church of England and financial year. I think those ones, sir, are pretty straightforward. They make that the 12-month period. Of course, redefining the Church of England, it says it means the bishop appointed under that title by the Anglican Church in Aotearoa, New Zealand and Polynesia, commonly known as Church of England, or the bishop of any replacement diocese, and includes any person acting as the bishop when the bishop is, for any reason, unavailable. Sir, the bishop of Te Upoko o Te Ika, interestingly enough, sir, has a there are bishops spread out across the country, but the bishop of Te Upoko o Te Ika has a slightly different significance nationally. And I say that with respect to all of the bishops across the country, but the one here in Upoko o Te Ika tends to be the head of the church nationally, the head of the church nationally. And we know, as my esteemed colleague here, Mr. Tiri Kātene, pointed out about what happens in the replacement situation. We know that when the bishop of Te Upoko o Te Ika is unable to perform their duties for whatever reason, another bishop steps in. And in the past, I know for a fact that bishop has been the bishop of Te Taitokero, or the bishop of the other end of the fish that my colleague Mr. Davis was referring to, a man by the name of Bishop Kito Pikahu, good man, who has fulfilled those duties quite well. But I wonder, sir, just putting it out here, sir, that in the failure of the bishop of Te Upoko o Te Ika to fulfill those duties, sir, I wonder if anyone who steps into that role in this particular instance is fully aware, if you like, fully aware of what's required of them under this particular piece of legislation, sir, or under this particular amendment bill. That's one question I have. The other one is the other points I want to make on this particular part, sir, are pretty straightforward. But I do want to pick up the part the point made by my colleague Mr. Davis around tangata whenua of Wairarapa. Means an individual who has a whakapapa to the tipuna rangatira who established historical kinship groups in Wairarapa. And I say that, sir, with respect to the history of Te Papawai marae, and it might interest the member in the chair, Mr. Scott, that one of the po that surrounds the marae at Te Papawai is actually named after my great-grandfather and former Member of Parliament, Tau Henare. Tau Henare, who attended, as far as our historical records show, attended some of the early hui held at Te Papawai, and has his figure carved in a po at the marae. And I wonder, sir, if there is any relationship or any ability for me to look into my whakapapa and see whether or not I become eligible for some of the scholarships there. Certainly not me, but my tamariki. And I say that, sir, with respect to a theme I've been carrying currently in the House. And it is about making sure that when you seek to define heritage, when you seek to define lineage in pieces of legislation, one has to be very, very careful. One has to be very, very careful. And I say that because I give an example, sir. If I am living in Wairarapa and I consider myself tangata whenua, I was born there, I was raised there, I have lineage there, sir, I play a crucial service in my whānau and take a tamaiti whāngai. I take a tamaiti whāngai, I adopt a child. I adopt a child into my family. Does this make that particular child a tangata whenua of Wairarapa? Does it make them eligible for the types of benefits that are intended with the amendment of this particular bill? That's just another question I have, and it may sound, what was my expression earlier, a bit patukutu, a bit nitpicky, but it's these kinds of issues when whānau are looking for scholarships for their tamariki to go to whare wānanga, to universities, they want, and you're asked to provide your link to that particular place, it's often quite difficult.
I call